So this morning we continue our discussions and we're talking all about International Cooperatives Day. And this morning we have on with us our guest, Mr. Jerome Chambers, who is the Executive Manager of the Cooperative Development Office of the Commissioner of Cooperatives. Good morning and welcome. Your mic is muted. All right. So good morning and welcome. Tell us all about International Cooperatives Day.
Isn't muted. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Nice. Okay.
So
We
as
had
I
some
said before,
technical
tell us
difficulties
all
this morning.
about International
Okay.
Cooperatives Day.
Um, Now it's interesting because lots of people simply focus on credit unions alone. But believe it or not, this is actually the 103rd celebration of International Cooperative Day. 103. So that's the foundation. In order, now I'll reference the credit unions because most people are familiar with that. But a credit union is first and foremost a cooperative. Yeah? There are many different types of cooperative. And in the first Saturday of July, every single year, for the last 103 years, we have celebrated International Cooperative Day. Yeah? Now, this is particularly interesting for us in 2025 because 2025 was designated by the United Nations as the International Year of Cooperatives. So that is also happening. Cooperatives contribute about 20 billion, that's B, dollars in terms of assets in Trinidad and Tobago. You have about 129 active credit unions in particular, about 73 what we call non-financial cooperatives, so that's non-credit unions. And they span a range of sectors, transport, agriculture, property development, retail, consumer, and we also have about 103 junior cooperative societies. Those are cooperatives that are based in primary and secondary schools. So you see there's a lot happening there, a lot of contributions towards the sector, lots of activity.
Excellent. And what are the purpose of cooperatives within the overall society and how does it help to shape or move the society forward?
Ah, well, cooperatives are economic engines. That's probably the best way I can say it to you. And if one had to try to get at a definition, if you were, of cooperatives, it would simply be an organization where you have a group of people coming together to achieve some sort of primarily economic goal that either they could not achieve on their own or it would be extremely difficult for them to achieve. So let's say a traditional one. Let's say everyone has to buy groceries. Yeah. So that what if we decided we would come together, pool our resources, buy those grocery items in bulk, let's say from NFM, just off the top of the head, we would then subdivide what we bought into portions suitable for each of our needs. Because we buy groceries, let's say once a fortnight, once a month, one or two items maybe once a week. Now, if we did that, we are essentially having this group activity, which would be a coming together of persons in cooperation for consumer goods and items, and we would call that a consumer cooperative. And that is essentially is how El Dorado Consumer Cooperatives started many, many years ago. Let's take another example. And incidentally, there are at least one or two credit unions in Tobago that I can think of that have gone in this particular direction. We all want a home. But sometimes, particularly in these last few years, getting a home is not exactly the cheapest thing in the world. So what if we pooled our resources and we bought land, real property, that we then subdivided and made available for sale for our individual members? If we did that, we would then have a housing cooperative or a land ownership cooperative. So those are just two examples of how you can use the cooperative business model to achieve economic resilience, to achieve economic advancement. Yeah.
Excellent. And even the office of the Commissioner of Cooperative Development. Tell us, how does that organization work to facilitate capacity building, growth, and overall development of cooperative societies like those credit unions and other organizations?
Some interesting questions, like you prepared for me this morning. Well, it is actually a state agency. We currently fall under the Ministry of Labor. Previously, it would have been under the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. But we are operated and we are established by an Act of Parliament. It is actually Chapter 8103 of the Laws of Trinidad and Tobago. It is called the Cooperative Societies Act. And under that particular Act of Parliament, under Section 2 to be exact, it says, there shall be a Commissioner for Cooperative Development who will perform the duties of registrar and will have general powers of supervision. So that we take you from birth to death, as it were. Strange analogy, but so that if you have a group of people that were desirous of forming a cooperative, they would pass through the office of the commissioner. An officer or officers would be assigned to them in terms of properly explaining what cooperatives are about, what is the economic model, what their constitution is supposed to look like, that is to say their bylaws. We even assist them in terms of doing up a business plan. After we are satisfied that this particular enterprise meets the cooperative ideal, then we would register them. They get legal status. So while a business registered under the Companies Act would have a certificate of incorporation, we give them a certificate of registration. And every cooperative that you are familiar with now, even those that are celebrating their 60-something anniversary, all of those would have passed through. I can give you perhaps two examples to help your viewers or your listeners understand just how far we have come. Yeah, may I?
Understood. Right. And even as it pertains to, educating the public on your presence and you being around and what you do, what type of activities have you guys been doing? And I mean, even as it is International Cooperatives Day, tell us about some of the work that you are doing.
Okay. Well, for us, it's never a dull moment. Let me say it that way. Because people are always coming, they want information. We also assist a number of students who are doing research into the cooperative business model. There are a number of people actually who are doing their PhD work, who we assist because we have files on every single cooperative. Um, One of the examples I wanted to give you. Many years ago, there were a number of employees who worked in the Red House in particular, and they had identified needs in terms of savings and credit and the like. So they banded together and they then formed what was then called the Red House and Neighboring Districts Credit Union. Now, you might say to yourself, but I've never heard of it. But you have, because they've been around for more than 60 years. And eventually, they changed that long name to an acronym that became a word: Red House and Neighboring Districts RHAND Rand Credit Union,
Oh,
which is currently the sixth largest credit union in the country. Yeah. Um, I can give you yet another interesting example. Again, just to show you how far we have come. Many years ago, again, the employees of Bermuda's Biscuit employees, they identified a need, credit, savings, and the like. They banded together in a warehouse in Bermuda's Biscuit factory, and they formed what was then called the Bermuda's Biscuit Employees Credit Union. They grew. They were in part of an industrial estate in the eastern region in Trinidad, yeah, and they went on from Bermuda's Biscuit Employees Credit Union to become Eastern Industrial Credit Union. And then they grew out of the industrial estate and came on the East West Corridor, and they became Eastern Credit Union. Yeah. So these are the things that we do on a daily basis. In particular, for International Year of Cooperatives, we have been having a number of what we call stakeholder engagement. So rather than wait for issues to come, because if you have a problem with your cooperative that you're a member of, shareholder of, we are the port of call. We resolve disputes so that since we have a handle on what happens in every single cooperative in the country, we have started to have these public meetings for International Year of Cooperative, where we actually go out to different venues. The last one we had would have been in Cipriani College. I know there is a consideration to have something in Shore Park as well, where all members of credit unions, of cooperatives in Tobago can come, interact, ask questions, get their questions answered. We also would be engaging with the officials, members of the board, supervisory, credit committees, in terms of if we have seen something happen in another cooperative that we can perhaps nip in the bud or give assistance to, um, well, no, I'm not saying that there's a problem, I just call them names, yeah? So Tobago-based credit unions such as Thor, Mount Pleasant, we interact with them. And in order to do this efficiently, we actually have offices, sub-offices everywhere in Trinidad and Tobago. So there is a sub-office in Tobago that is called the Cooperative Development Unit, CDU. They fall ostensibly under the Division of Finance. In Trinidad, our head office would be on St. Vincent Street, but we also have, and it's brought over from the old county council days. So we have an office in County Victoria, which is San Fernando. We have one in County Carney, which is Chaconas. We have one in Sandy Grande, and we have one in Siparia. So we make
right.
it as easy as possible for members of the public to reach to us to get resolutions for their problems.
Okay. And even as it pertains to utilizing the success models of particular credit unions to recommend investment and fiscal policies to the government, is that done by your organization?
Yeah, every year we would contribute information, statistical data to central bank, to Ministry of Finance for the planning of the budget. And I should highlight, maybe last year in particular, leading into this year, we have been working much, much closer, not only with central bank, but with the FIU, because we actually have a MOU between the division and central bank and an MOU with FIU. Many people would not be aware that Trinidad and Tobago was actually undergoing a regional risk assessment by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. We also would participate in things like that because cooperatives are financial entities. They may be classed as non-bank financial institutions, but these are places where citizens invest money They expect a certain level of stability, a certain level of security. And one of the highlights for me, if you invest money in a cooperative as opposed to another financial entity, you are not just an account holder. You are not just a client. You are actually part owner of the entity. And being part owner of the entity, you have a greater say, a greater opportunity to contribute. So that, let's say you invest in shares in a financial entity, a commercial bank, that does not automatically entitle you to attend an annual general meeting, or you do not necessarily have enough shares to vote. But in a cooperative, there's a unique difference. It is one share, one man, one vote. So that whether I have $500 in shares, whether I have $5,000 in shares, I am still entitled to attend the annual general meeting. I am still entitled to vote. And if I am in good standing, I am still entitled or eligible to be elected to serve the other members. So those are some of the important things there.
Excellent. And if persons are interested in creating their own cooperatives, because as you indicated before, your organization, the commission, works with groups from beginning to end. How can they reach out to you? What is the process of getting that assistance to maybe start a new credit union or any type of cooperative society that might benefit the economic development of their community or island, as we look at in the case of Tobago?
Easy. The CDU Cooperative Development Unit is housed in the Victor E. Bruce Financial Complex. You can reach out there. You can write a letter. Well, normally we always insist you write a letter to keep the records going to the Commissioner for Cooperative Development. Like I mentioned, we are under Ministry of Labor. Our head office is on St. Vincent Street, and you can take it from them. There's also a general email you can use. It is Commissioner CDD. So that's Commissioner CDD as in Cooperative Development Division at gov.tt. So at gov.tt. And once it is you send that in, you're inside, as they say. We'll
Right.
take care of it.
Is there a limit on the amount of, finances that can be generated through a cooperative society? For example, if there were to be an investment fund, does this fall particularly under you? Let's say, for instance, it's a general or, one of those investment funds that allow persons to invest in mutual funds that benefit different businesses. Can they come to you to start up that type of thing?
Different type of business, right? And we have cooperatives in the past where people wanted to concentrate on savings and investments per se. Um, we would need to be comfortable with the structure and the particular business model, because at the end of the day, you're talking about people's hard-earned funds. In some cases, this might be people's life savings. So we always need to be very, very careful where that is concerned. But there is no limit per se. If you want to talk about limits, I will say there is like a minimum limit in terms of the amount of people that we need to see before we register a cooperative, because it is a group activity. And there are figures like, let's say normally like around 25 people, because you need to allocate an adequate number of people to serve on the board of directors. And boards are actually either 9 persons or 12 persons traditionally. You must have enough for the supervisory committee. The supervisory committee is like the internal audit committee that's laid down in the statute. So that will be either 3 persons or 5 persons. You need 2 substitutes for each grouping. So if you check 12, you check 5, and if it's specifically a credit union, the credit committee normally is about 5 persons, 2 substitutes as well. And of course, you must have general members. So that's the thinking behind the 25. But in terms of maximum amount, the two largest credit unions we have in the country, I think their membership is in excess of 200,000 people. So that no maximum there. And in terms of their individual assets, we have at least 2 credit unions whose asset base has crossed $2 billion each. So no maximum there.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Chambers, we know that a number of persons would be reaching out to you after this interview to get more information or just to get their businesses started or get their ideas off the ground. And, finally, with these financial entities, do they have to be registered on the Securities and Exchanges or with you, or do they have to do both?
TSEC, as we normally call them, under our legislation, there are particular rules, guidelines, restrictions as to where cooperatives can invest their money. So that, firstly, if it is a state or central bank licensed entity, such as a commercial bank, then there's a blanket approval. They can invest there. If it is something that is not a state-backed, state-secured, or licensed entity, then they need the permission of the commissioner in order to invest there. So you can't just invest wherever you please, yeah? But we are the regulator for all of those things, right? We have investment analysts who work in the department so that whatever investment, the cooperative sends it to us, we review it. In some cases, we meet with the entity who is proposing the investment to properly see what's going on, and then we give approval, or in some cases, we do not give approval.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much, Mr. Chambers, for this informative session this morning. I know that a lot of us have been thoroughly educated, and we look forward to, a number of other sessions and educational forums from the cooperatives. As you indicated, there may be one of those events happening in Tobago in the near future where all cooperative society members would be able to come together, ask questions, have their questions answered, or even, bring some of their issues to the fore. And again, we want to thank you and your colleagues for choosing us here at Tobago Updates, and we hope you have a great day. Guys, we want to thank you so much for sticking with us this morning. Thank you for your likes, your shares, your comments, and all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, I am your host, Shenell Felix, and have a wonderful day.